We are so excited to have some local River Oaks entrepreneurs here in the house. We have Emily Gibbons and Stephen Gibbons, owner of Stroll Magazine.
Hey guys, thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for having us, y'all. We appreciate it.
So tell us more about how we met and what you guys do here in the area locally and then beyond. We want to hear more about your business.
Yeah.
You and her linked
I was
up
going to
first.
say,
I'll let you tell that part
you
of
and
the
I
story.
actually ended up DMing on Instagram,
Okay,
I think because Lauren
Yep.
Hollub, who's our photographer, we were in the neighborhood one day and she's like, oh my gosh, you know what? You need to talk to this Gentry girl. And I was like, I don't know Gentry. But then of course I ended up looking up who you are. And I think I messaged you and we did an article on you. And that was 4 years ago.
Not even. Well, no. It was about 2 years ago because Liam was about 2 years old when we did it.
Okay.
You mean the cover of the magazine?
Yeah. Well, we did an article first though, just on
Time
the,
flies when you're having fun.
on the business. Yeah. And so that's how you and I connected. And then, we obviously did the family feature in July. That was our first Stroll issue. And yeah, if you kind of want to give a background on how we got into this.
On
though,
Stroll and what in the world it
Who
is.
is Stroll Magazine?
Who is, well.
We didn't even start a Stroll, so.
True.
That's what I was curious about.
So great talking point. Actually, we started this, it's a franchise operation basically. We started it as River Oaks Life, and it was about 5 years ago. We're a part of a umbrella franchise under the N2 company, and our flagship product has been for about 20 years, what is now known as Stroll. What Stroll is, what it's become, it specializes neighborhood newsletters for really niche, very like high-end desirable communities. And what we do is unique enough, we let the residents of each community write the content. So all the content is by them, it's for them, it's about pictures of their families and their kids and their pets. When we came across the franchise, we loved the idea of it. We started one in Katy first, and then we started River Oaks Life
Okay,
in
so River Oaks
2019.
wasn't even first. Okay, so
Not
when did
even
you start
for
the
us.
Katy?
That was back in 2018, and then started one in 2019 known as River Oaks Life for Stroll. But fast forward, now there are about 600 nationwide. We have several across the Houston area. It was the first, actually, I believe the first Stroll issue was when we met y'all and, had that feature. So that was the rebrand that we wanted.
From River Oaks Life. That was what we started as River Oaks Life. And then the July 2022 was you guys. That was the first Stroll issue. That was like a whole nationwide rebrand.
Well, I think there was another magazine in our neighborhood, and I know every neighborhood has a different magazine that you guys, quote, compete with, but the name was so close, it was very confusing.
Oh, they were nearly identical.
And I remember when you guys came to me, you're like, hey, what do you think? You gave me a sneak peek of what it was going to look like, and I'm like, oh my God, light years better. Because of what I do, I mean, I'm really into fonts. I don't like the real cursive-y kind of thing. I think it just takes us back 10, 20 years.
Script.
So I really, really like whatever you guys used here.
Yeah.
Sans script or whatever you call it, no little tails on it.
Yes.
It looks like a Vogue magazine. Like it's super, for a neighborhood magazine. I mean, this looks like something that people would pay $10, in line at the grocery store for.
And the content's really good too. And I think that that's what keeps people wanting to read it and then write more content. If you're letting the residents write.
And Sean is one of your probably most popular readers here. He actually goes through these magazines and he does flip through all of them. And what he said about yours, it doesn't seem so ad heavy.
Yeah.
Right.
It seems like a real magazine where you're getting real information. And what I love that you guys do is every single month, the cover of the magazine is never like on a new restaurant opening or some big festival in town.
Right.
You guys focus on families that live within that neighborhood.
Yes.
So I wouldn't be on a memorial cover, right? You pick people from the neighborhood who have a good story and you put their family on the cover. And I think that's great because it kind of introduces neighbors. Like, who is your neighbor? I want to hear their story too.
Yeah, so that's actually like a really something that we are very we feel very, very strongly about because you do have a lot of River Oaks magazines that it's like pulling families from Memorial or different areas in Houston. And so a lot of the way we get our content is by nominations. And so like, let's say you're on the cover, we'll say, hey, who would you like to nominate to be the next family of the month? And so it really is just connecting neighbors. And I feel really, really strongly about that. And it's telling stories of people's kids, pets, making a difference articles, yard of the month, home of the month. So it's really like it's kind of nostalgic. It's a neighborhood magazine, but it's been really fun. And so the first one we started in Katy, in a neighborhood called Cane Island, which is the new build, and that one blew up. And Stephen was doing this alone. I was not doing this with him at the time. I was still with my old job. I was doing medical staffing, and River Oaks kind of came on the table as an opportunity to open up as a second franchise. And he's like, hey, I need your help.
So did someone own the franchise before then, and there was an opportunity to buy into it, or is it just a new area or new zip code?
It was a new area.
Admittedly, even an area that our company had tried in the past, and various individuals had come in and tried to launch that platform in River Oaks, and for whatever reasons, varying levels, I'm sure they weren't able to get that off the ground.
Yeah.
What's your background though? How did you even think about, hey, I'm going to start this magazine, I'm going to buy into this franchise?
Then we'll go into the story, I guess. Okay.
How did you even...
First of all, we didn't know that running neighborhood newsletters for a living was a job.
Yeah.
I mean, it was to that point of like, wow, okay, I guess we're doing this. But I'll tell you a little bit. My background was in medical sales for the bulk of my career. So I was...
both of you guys came from that industry.
Yeah.
We did. And actually, for the majority of my time prior to Stroll and Into Company, I was with an orthopedic device company. So it was actually a really awesome opportunity job that I got to sell to orthopedic surgeons, be in the OR, be a part of surgery, really develop good relationships there. And fortunately and unfortunately, I got pretty good at it, and I got a lot of surgeons on my customer role, if you will. And so what that meant is I was always on call. I was always at the disposal of the surgeons who needed me in the operating room. So I saw the quality of life deteriorating with that opportunity the more I grew. And I took a brief stint for a couple of years, actually at the same staffing company for medical staffing that she was at. But I was in a role that required a lot of travel, a lot of nights away from home during the time we had our first son.
I was about to ask, you didn't have any kids when you were working for the orthopedic company, right?
Didn't have them at that time, but we wanted to. And
so
we
saw. How you guys met when you went to work for the staffing company? Or
no,
you guys
we met when we were 19 in college.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and so I long distance. Stephen went to Auburn. I was going to Sam Houston, and I used to live in Atlanta when I was younger. Stephen grew up in Atlanta, and we met through mutual friends in college, and we were freshmen in college, and dated all through college, then So I grew up in Houston. I got married. When we got married, I moved to Atlanta after that. And And
this was all in Atlanta. So again, time we had our first son, I was traveling, growing in that role. It very quickly deteriorated. And it was ironic because again, the reason I left medical sales was to preserve quality of life. And it actually was even worse with this situation. So,
I hear this a lot. I think a lot of people think if you've never done it, then what you don't know, you don't know, right?
You don't.
I'm going to leave this 40-hour-a-week job so I can have more time and flexibility, but it turns into an 80-hour-a-week job.
Absolutely.
You don't have to turn it off.
There was a point where I was living out of a suitcase that stayed halfway open on the guest bedroom. And it was just clothes were like a carousel going in and out of there. I was flying to whatever city. I was,
and this
of course,
is the medical staffing company?
This was with the staffing company, working for the same company. We saw each other less. I saw my son during his first year of life,
5 days.
It was hard, yeah.
So it was a real challenge. And I mean, transparently, we ended up at a absolute breaking rock bottom point in our marriage and relationship. And it became very clear that a drastic change needed to be made nearly overnight, or else
we weren't going to make it.
We weren't going to make it. We weren't going to make it. So
how did you land on that opportunity out of...
How did we find this one out of there? Well,
out of
things came to a head.
Things came to a head, and let me put it this way. She said, hey, one of the things you can do to prove you're serious about saving us is quit that job. I said, okay, I'll do it on Monday. She goes, no, you won't. I said, watch me. So
we're eating ramen, so go ahead and stock up.
An absolute ill-advised move to quit a job with no plan is exactly what I did. And I never would have done that in a million years, but it came to it, and our marriage comes first. So I took that complete leap of faith. And then the next day I was on LinkedIn looking for
a month, listed our house in Atlanta. We were like, we're going to move to Texas to be with my family and sold our house. Some
stability and comfort there.
Remember, we listed our house that day.
Sold overnight.
The day that you quit? The day that you quit? Like the Monday that you quit?
So
I quit. We put the house up for sale.
Within that week.
Sold within the neighborhood.
In a day.
That night. Yeah. And it was just
all. You're like, shit.
No,
I got to find a job.
We got to get the moving truck. We're actually doing this. And it was like, what are you doing? Because and again, full transparency, he was making more money at the time than I was. And I was like, well, we can't live off my salary. So what are we going to do? And
did your job allow for the move? I mean, were you able to work from home?
So that was
at least
something,
quitting both?
I did have to go into the office part-time. I was a hybrid at that time. And I had been with the company for about 8 years. And so I had earned enough, tenure, I guess, yes, thank you, to tell them, we're going to move to Texas. Can I keep my job and work remote? And they were completely fine with that. But so, it happened really fast. And then we're kind of like, okay, shit, what are we going to do? You still need to have money.
Yeah.
And so as we're like, trying to get the house ready, he's like, okay, I'm on LinkedIn and looking for all these jobs.
I will always remember sitting on the couch and like amidst the chaos and like boxes moving, and I'm sitting there looking for, and I typed in, the premium LinkedIn search, right? Like job finder. Here's this ideal opportunity in my head that I had. And it was.
And were you looking at medical at this point?
I was looking at anything. Gentry. So anything that basically my criteria was no travel,
like filters, no travel.
Work from home. And this was pre-COVID. So even work from home was very rare. Yeah. Outside sales, customer relationships. I was looking for, again, flexible schedule, quality of life. Quality of life was, again, this was going to be third time's the charm here, what I was looking for. And lo and behold, what was known as N2 Publishing back then, before we were known as the N2 company, comes up. And I look into it, and it was apparent that they did these newsletters like I talked about for these high-end communities, and it was resident content, and you sell the local advertising as part of the platform, and you're there, and you have those relationships.
Crazy that you saw an opportunity in this being so different.
Very different. And
never done.
I just paused because, again, background is not in journalism or anything like that, but the sales background was enough to understand the business model. And the business model to me made complete sense based on the fact that, hey, in our old neighborhood, and it wasn't even an N2 publication, we got a medium quality newsletter, and I read that thing every month. And then I thought about the business model of getting a newsletter like that, but let's make it the Cadillac of newsletters. Let's make this the Vogue of newsletters, if you will, the best newsletter that we could possibly make, send it to the most desirable communities in America, and then find businesses that want to be in front of those communities, which when you think about it, of course, is a lot of businesses because they want to be in front of that audience, but it's tough to reach. So it, to me, just was so simple that it was beautiful. It made sense. I loved the cultural values of the company and everything I saw. And I told her about it and basically said, hey, I think I found what I'm going to do. And she goes, it's what?
Well, also let's point out, and then he's like, okay, but there's something that comes along with it.
Oh yeah, the starting salary.
Well,
she said first, don't you want to look at anything else? And I said, no, I think this is it. Like it was kind of one of those things. And even like on the cultural values of the company, it's like, hey, we want to make a company that honors God and serves the community through what we do. And that really spoke to me. I said, no, that was kind of one of those things. And she, for some reason, decided to trust me once again, despite the turmoil that we were in.
It's time.
This is when you have an amazing wife that in the midst of chaos and, at the brink of, a potential split, she says, okay, I trust you. Let's do this thing. And so, the kicker was the startup cost for this franchise opportunity. Good news is there was no cost involved. Bad news is complete time, sweat, labor, equity. So,
well, that is also rare for a franchise.
It is.
It's a very unique model. It's a very, very unique model.
What year was this?
This was 2018. So we're sitting here now, like if we're following chronologically, this is
April of 2018.
Late April 2018, we're looking at this. Yeah. And it was going to be a situation where there's a ramp up process to start every franchise publication platform, and you completely put that on your back with no paycheck until
so it goes. 600 areas, or is it 600 franchisees or 600 areas?
600
territories.
Yeah, correct.
So how big were they then? Was it a really small company, and that's why they just had a zero upfront cost to try to get people?
That was just the model from the very beginning. The founders of the company, Earl and Dwayne, they kind of had this idea. 20 years ago, in Charlotte, correct?
Yep. Well, Charlotte, Wilmington, Chicago, kind of those early markets.
And they started it, and I don't really know the background.
The history of it becoming a franchise, when they decided to, they all started it kind of independently and just recruiting people almost like they were Cutco guys, and half of our company came from Cutco back in the day. Yeah. So they started it under that model and that premise. But then they started getting pretty serious and growing at a pretty rapid pace about 5 years in. That's when they decided to franchise, and they really weighed, hey, do we do a franchise fee? Like, do we employ this, for $30K, $50K, $100K? Because the top line revenue that becomes available pretty quickly in this industry, it would justify that.
And it opens up the gate to
it would open up the gate, but that's what they
wanted to give the opportunity to more people.
And I think that speaks to the culture of the organization, is that you can find somebody, and a lot of people have ended up at the company in crazy times like us, and they find they find a complete quality of life, work balance that just works for them, and they're able to provide for their families upon further than they would probably be able to in their previous jobs. And so Dwayne and Earl, our founders, really didn't want to employ that franchise fee, but they don't believe in handouts. They don't believe in anything that doesn't come on the back of hard work. So it's always been if you build it, then you get to collect on it and you get to be the franchise owner of that. So
how long did that take, jumping in there, feet first?
I'm sure you took a huge pay cut.
So went from having our main income taken away to moving in with my mom.
That's what I figured.
In the Woodlands, found out we were pregnant with our second child
during the course of.
So that was a real sexy time of life, and then during that time that was in the Woodlands. And the opportunity for the community was Cane Island and Katy. So he's driving to Katy every single day, knocking on, literally walking into businesses at that time. He's from Atlanta, doesn't know anyone from Houston, and is just basically trying to ramp up this magazine because essentially you have to sell enough. And I don't know what that specific number was for Cane Island at the time, but it's you have to sell enough to break even to go to print.
Actually, you had to sell into profit, go to print. Yeah. And, so answer the question.
I don't know if you know that number looking back, but
I do.
You had 20,000 in sales, 50,000 in sales,
right?
Some number like that.
Basically, yeah.
Because you had to cover the cost of making, 10,000 magazines or whatever.
And at the time, Cane Island was still being built out as a community, so that also comes into factors your production cost of how many homes are in the neighborhood that you're printing to. So Cane Island at the time was a new build, and it only had. It
only had about 400 homes at the time.
Homes.
So we were
looking. That's a good area to be in.
It was a good place to start, honestly.
That was a big reason we jumped on that one.
Yeah.
It was Katy always has been, for the past 10, 15 years, one of the fastest growing communities. We saw that.
Yeah.
It was a master plan high-end community there. So I thought, hey, my path to launching this could be somewhat shorter. And it was. It was ahead of company average. Typically we try to ramp people up from 3 to 6 months in that time frame. That's really proven for them to have longevity with the franchise. We did it in 4. I spent the first 3.5 weeks going, 0 for 100. It seemed like
some rough weeks.
I'll never forget. I was
coming home hey, any sales today? How are we doing on this?
The first few weeks were brutal because it was just, it was a bunch of doubt poked into the model from people who didn't understand.
I was about to say that. So you're selling something that's not even out yet.
Exist.
I know.
Selling an imaginary.
He has nothing
as
to
a
show.
business owner.
I had a sample from. I had a sample
communities.
from. It was basically from Willamette Valley, Oregon.
So
I'm walking around with this in Katy, Texas.
That's tough.
And at a time too where the perception was that print was going, out. Basically, that it was on its last leg.
Print's dead.
And there was that perception. And the thing about that is niche print has always been a thing, and it's always worked as long as its intended audience sees it. But we were seeing so much broad-based print go away.
Yeah.
I was facing that objection with a sample from Oregon and saying, hey, I'm going to plop this down in Katy, Texas, and this is going to work.
I was going to say,
I swear.
And then insert Katy, Texas. It's we're not downtown or in River Oaks where it's the norm to have.
Well, yeah, that's true.
People in Katy
Print's more widely accepted in a Houston or an
metro,
urban setting, metro setting where there's a lot more prevalent print. And there was that, in Katy and some of the suburbs, but not much anymore. And so it was being equated to that. And I had to overcome that objection and barrier before it started to click. But then
4 months we went to print, which was super exciting.
The next 3 months were much better than those first 3
so
weeks.
4 months was great.
4 months was great. And
then your first $500 paycheck then.
Exactly. So we started collecting it in, and then 6 months in, Cane Island had blown up because I just never
did really well, really
I never
fast.
came out of the mentality of that ramp up mentality. I said, great, we launched it, but let's build the profit and let's build the business and let's build something larger. So
you find that it was way easier once they saw that first issue? And
it was. And really because I had learned to, it's almost like if you can learn to do it blindfolded, you can do it better than that, right? So when I learned to do it without an actual publication of my own locally to show, I became efficient.
Gosh,
and then
when so crazy to think about.
It is.
We literally did not have a product.
Not even a local one to show. But in hindsight, I should have showed a local one, but I just didn't know better at the time.
Yeah.
And so then it blew up, and 6 months in was when the company tapped me on the shoulder and say, hey, that River Oaks area is primed. Someone needs to try it again.
You're like, I just
do you want to try it?
And we're doing really well. Let's just stay on to this one.
But there was probably a level of confidence at that time that said, okay, we just did this over here, and everyone told us we couldn't do it there.
Yeah.
So let's do that here.
And then you hear the name River Oaks. It's of course. This is
River Oaks just fits
community.
Stroll into publishing, into company. This was all derived from a River Oaks type neighborhood mentality.
So
to where,
as far as consistency goes with the franchise, are any of the names before that was Stroll, were any of them cohesive in any sort of way where people could tie that they belong together?
So
I'll take that one. That is the purpose of why we did what we did as a company, because the answer is no.
Yeah, was it your idea to do the whole
Oh, I wish. No, we hired a young lady named Stephanie Smith, ironically from Atlanta, where we used to live. And she worked background in modern luxury and several different Spanx. So really understood branding. And it's so funny, Gentry, that you asked that, because what she said on the interview with our co-founders, Dwayne and Earl, is, at the time, how are you guys an industry leader in your space for 15 years and I've never heard of you? How is that? And they said, well, we've got fragmented, River Oaks Life, Island Living, Piney Point Village Estates, all these different names. Unless you look inside the flap and you see the little
for all 600 areas if they all have the same name.
Absolutely.
So did they all adapt, or was it just your 7 or however
I remember
many
the conference we went to.
Well, it was You
were part of the Stroll.
Those were one of the shirts that we wore on stage to announce it. And they told myself and a few other select franchise owners nationwide that we were going to do this. And of course, they expected all types of reactions, freak out. How are you going to change the name of my magazine that I've had for 15 years?
I would feel like that.
A lot of people. A lot of people were going to be very defensive.
I had worked so hard on River Oaks Life, and half of my job was spent explaining how River Oaks Life was different than River Oaks Lifestyle and all these other things.
I was confused. We were confused.
The names alone are so confusing.
And that was always part of. I almost had a little bit I had of how do I explain to someone how I'm different?
Well, did you guys name that other one?
Yeah.
We did.
So you just weren't aware of the other?
Maybe not. I mean, looking back, we would have.
Lifestyle actually launched the exact same month as we did, unbeknownst to them or us, I believe. We both launched River Oaks Life, formerly known as, and River Oaks Lifestyle, both launched in November of 19, unbeknownst to either owner, I believe. So we just said, okay, I guess we're rolling with it.
Yeah.
Because here it is. And
it's too late to rebrand at that point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But no, so Stephanie Smith came in and had this brilliant idea of Stroll. And I remember when you first showed it to me and I was like, this looks really weird.
Because it's different.
But this is
right.
This is good though.
Everything looks weird in the beginning.
It looks weird.
Sounded familiar. Yahoo.
Right.
I mean, we did not.
And now,
good.
and I mean, it was just amazing, that conference. I remember you guys stood up and
took off the blazers, and everyone had these shirts underneath, and they're like, we're going to this nationwide, and they showed the before and after of the mastheads.
What was the reaction of all the franchisee owners? Was it
specifically?
Mixed?
I honestly think it was pretty positive.
It was.
I think everyone kind of deep down knew this is gonna be good.
Well, for the reason that Gentry asked, I mean, it was so disconnected, and you didn't have the ability to walk in. And now when I walk in with a Stroll magazine, especially in certain areas, exactly, we never had that.
When you're trying to sell someone as a business owner, what do they say about, hey, the internet is taken over, and then hey, do people still look at this? Is that the number one objection when you walk in and try to sell to somebody?
I think, again, interestingly, yes, in maybe more of the suburb areas, because it's been perceived there more so than where you do have so much print inside of Houston, proper and metro area. Yeah, that print's going out. And what I'll typically say is that, hey, again, print works if it's seen, just like a billboard works if it's seen, just like a TV commercial or a radio ad. They work if they're seen or heard. What you have to do is you have to make sure that the right eyes are actually seeing it and not throwing it away.
Because I have to disagree with that. Because I feel the exact opposite. No, I agree with everything you just said, except for the very first sentence, that people have a hard time in the neighborhoods accepting that print is still a thing. Yeah. I feel like your magazine, and I wasn't even really doing, maybe I did 1 or 2 direct ads with you. It wasn't a whole lot.
No, yeah, I think it was
it was just
5
me
months.
Writing, articles that weren't salesy.
Yeah.
I have had more calls and clients come in mentioning I saw or read about you in this magazine versus the other things that I've paid for that are huge distributions in the Houston area.
Wow.
I think people read and believe and trust in the neighborhood magazine more than they do of the Houston spread.
Sure.
That's my take on that.
I agree, because I actually read through them just because it is neighborhood news and then people that live in the community. And so I think
that's more to you.
Yeah. And so you really you're interested, and you pretty much look at the whole thing.
That's where we would, again, if I'm, let's say, meeting with a prospective sponsor business that wants to advertise in there, and they say something on that regard of hey, are people actually looking at this? I kind of say, hey, look, I don't have a radar detector every time someone in River Oaks opens it, but I say, let's take a minute to look through the stories, and I'm going to show you how each month there's a different family that signs up and waits for almost a year to be featured. They wait their turn, they fill out their own Q&A, they send in their own pictures. Same with the kid of the month, same with the pet of the month, same with even the recipe of the month has to come from an actual River Oaks person in their kitchen. This happens every month. And when we start to do the math, I show that business owner, look at how many people are paying attention and bought in. Now, again, our goal is to have you seen. If they buy from you or not, we can't control that. Yeah. But if this is your audience over here, if River Oaks is your demographic, we can get you in front of them on print alone.
Let me tell you how I was seen. So the lady who lived across the street from us, we thought that they lived somewhere else. Like maybe they just had this house for, I don't know, tax reasons or whatever, but we never saw these people. Every once in a while, a car would pull in and pull out. We just thought maybe they had another home, in a different state, which they do. But anyway, they got the magazine. The husband was reading it and he said, hey, there's a makeup girl writing an article. You should read this article. You should go see her. She ends up in my chair and I'm like, oh, where do you live? How did you find out about us? She says, the magazine. I'm like, oh, what street are you on? She says, Lock Lane. I'm like, I'm on Lock Lane. Oh, what block? Wow. She was literally right across the street from me and we had never met.
So they didn't know that you lived in River Oaks at the time. They just saw your ad.
That's so funny.
And she's like, you know what else is funny? You know how your name sounds so familiar? She goes, we have your P.O. box too, because I get all of your mail.
Oh my
gosh.
Which is even more
that's
strange.
Crazy.
But anyway, I was meeting people who were reading and they were actually coming in to make appointments, which is huge for me because some of the other magazines that I've paid high dollar for, I don't get that kind of feedback.
And I mean, and we always love hearing stories like that. And like part of, I handle all the content for the magazine. And it's like, what I love so much is whenever I hear, they're like, oh, hey, I so-and-so have become friends because you introduced us through Stroll, or we met at, the ice cream social or whatever. I take so much joy in that. Like, it sounds so corny, but like, I really do love connecting people. And I just think in the world of social media, kind of to go back to your question, it's like, you don't really feel like you know people sometimes. And so I think when you go back to the nostalgic magazine of like, hey, like I just saw my neighbor, I read my neighbor, and you say hello when you see them walking their dog. I mean,
you have a point of conversation.
Yeah, you have a point of conversation. It's like an actual true connection. So, but I think it's definitely an obstacle that we run into a lot is, well, you guys aren't on social media, or how many likes do you guys have, or how many followers? And it's like, we're not necessarily trying to get a bunch of followers. Right. We want the right followers. And we want our residents interacting with us. So,
it's a very, very boutique, very niche type of marketing. And now we've evolved as a company too, to even where like Into does get into the whole like, hey, let's do SEO and Google ads and Facebook ads, because we know our clients are probably out there spending on that. That is what we'd refer to as more of like direct response advertising. Right. And that stuff's great and it does work. It works well with this. And we always talk about this being that almost word of mouth advertising, where you are just trying to get inside the homes, gain some trust of the readership in these neighborhoods to where it's proudly sitting on their coffee table. They're looking through it pleasantly. And as they glance at the ads and they go by, it's just a good branding reminder that they're there. So.
Are y'all still seeing a ton of growth so what's outside? You just own the Katy rights and then also the River Oaks rights. And then are y'all trying to buy other rights in the U.S. or Texas?
Well, of course, we have lots of. Okay, so
it's a loaded question.
Loaded
question. It's a good question.
Don't we only have an hour and a half of this? No. Okay, so we have 4 now currently. We have. So to go back to the Stroll question, Into has several product lines. So Stroll is not the only product line that we have. We have a Real Producers, which
it's a realtor-centric magazine where it features the top. Let's say the top 500. Realtors in Houston, or actually now what we're doing is segmenting the market. So there's a top 300 North Houston realtor magazine where all it features are the top realtors up there. Mainly the sponsors are going to be mortgage, title, home inspecting, etc.
So that's one.
That's one of their product lines.
We have Be Local, and we actually own one of those up in Katy. And that is a publication that is mailed out monthly as well. But that is directed towards new movers. And so we basically have obtained to new movers.
New movers.
To the
like
area.
if you move into the house and it's probably like a how-to
package
guide.
You get
It's
with all of your
so essentially
discounts
like
the
it would show up.
Whatever.
I mean, you know the timeline. What is it like?
It's about
a month.
Yeah, give or take 60 days after they physically move in. And it looks similar to Stroll, but of course completely different. It's still a big 80-page thick high gloss magazine, but it's all about their new city and places to go, restaurants,
doctors, pediatricians,
things that are also more
salons,
challenging to Google and find the best local recommendations. So from the marketing perspective, if you're a sponsor, you're trying to be the first dentist that they learn about when they're brand new and need a new dentist.
We started that 2 years ago?
2 years, yeah.
And then we also last year obtained a Stroll in Weston Lakes up in Fulshire.
Yeah.
So now we're currently.
That's a growing area. We know so many people that so many of our clients are like, oh, I'm out in Fulshire.
It is.
So it's because you can still get a bunch of land.
Yeah, and that's
really crazy.
Beautiful community, gated, lots of land, and that one was around even prior to me starting Cane Island, and the former owner still lives there, and she just.
One wasn't doing super well though. I mean, when it was approached to us, and
she was being pulled away from that by having several kiddos and being pregnant again. And she's just said, hey, I can't give it the time and love that it needs, but I live here. I don't want to see it give away. Would you guys be interested?
You know, back to our story of always having, we joke every time we have a kid that we have a publication. So I was pregnant last year, and this is like comes to our desk at like 6 months.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
So comes to our desk at like, I think I was 6 months pregnant.
Yep.
And I was like, here's the deal. Like, we can take this one on, but I cannot do all the content and do everything for this publication. Like we already had to bring on some people to help with the other publications. And I was just like, I need to make sure that we have someone to help in this. And so,
how do you even find time? You have 3 kids currently, so we speed that up from 2 to 3.
Yeah, 2 to 3.
How do you find time to mom without a nanny? Because you said you don't have a nanny.
I don't have a nanny. No, I do everything. My resume is very impressive. You should see it.
Well, are you still out in the field?
That's what I was going to ask. Are you the only
every
salesperson?
Day, or
he's the only salesperson.
Yes.
It's pretty much like, it's funny because last year, you know, when I was on maternity leave, we had to bring on a lot of people to help our team. And while
you say maternity leave, that really means you're working.
I was still working during maternity leave. Yes.
She tried her best.
I tried my best to like take time, but again, going back to the work-life balance, like we're lucky enough that this job doesn't require me to like be driving around all day. I mean, I was still able to be with Joseph and enjoy time with him. But we brought on a lot of people, and like it's just you can relate to this in terms of, I will go into this with staff. It's like it's people don't care about your business necessarily like you do, and that's just really, really, it's hard to find that. And so it's back to us now, but I feel like that's when our business has been the best, is like when we are like hustling and we are working our butts off. It's us, but it's a struggle with when we have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 9-month-old. And Steven does all the sports, he coaches everything, so like it's a lot. But
so do you have like a schedule, like where you say you block off these 2 hours are for you, or is it just kind of chaos, just whenever you find time?
No, I mean, I think we've learned to work together pretty well. I mean, I think our work days are like, the kids go to school. They're not like home with me. So no, I mean, oh my gosh,
That's what I thought. They were home with you all day.
No.
Like, everybody now talk right now.
Nothing would get done.
But Steven does do all the sales, and that is another struggle. Like it's hard to find salespeople. Like that's a really big goal of ours right now, is to try to find someone to help.
Listen, I used to do it. I used to be in outside sales. I used to sell janitorial service contracts, and I would just get lazy. I would sell one big contract, and I knew I'd make $10,000 that month, and then I would just kind of take the rest of the time off. And I feel like that's what you run into a lot with the.
It is.
A lot
it's hard.
Yeah.
So but staffing's been an issue. I mean, I feel like we have a hard time finding.
We were very fortunate to have, that rare unicorn of a person when we acquired Weston Lakes, and she lives there and she cares so much about it, and she runs all the content still, and she came with that acquisition, and she's amazing.
Oh, that's
good.
You do want to,
because then she can cut her time from like 60 hours a week down to like 10 or 20.
I pretty much had to have like a very like serious, because she had only worked for the previous owner, and like that was all she knew. And so I had to have a conversation with her, and I'm just like, hey, like we're going to take this on, but I need to know that like you're going to be around, and if for some reason you're ready to peace out, like you got to give us some serious
So she
notice.
worked for the previous owner. This is the previous owner.
Got it. So we basically were like, we took over this publication, and if we didn't have her, like she's just amazing, Amanda. She pretty much runs everything up there, especially because Fulshire is not close to us. So
right,
we're not.
It's a solid 30-minute drive.
So where are you guys at? Where do you guys live?
We're in Katy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not too far from you.
Yeah.
Guys,
I know.
You're not in the Woodlands anymore.
Yeah.
Don't tell
it's better than Woodlands, and it's nice because it's like east side of Katy, where
you have 4 areas. You got to pick one.
No, I mean it's so funny. I mean, I didn't know anything about Katy. I grew up in Houston, but like I did not know anything about Katy, and then we end up finding ourselves living there, and actually we love it. Like
now we're into the sports and school worlds there, and there's no getting out once you get entrenched in there.
Oh my gosh,
we have some friends that live out there too.
It is like, it's just amazing. We love it out there. But so in terms of like our aspirations,
it's crazy. Again, let's relate it to kids. Have you ever been in the situation where you're like, okay, we have enough kids, like we can't get to all these kids. We're like, let's have
someone's
another baby.
Gonna have to get tied up.
Like, let's get another baby.
Yeah.
The same applies for these franchises. I mean, there are several areas of town that we've got our eye on, and we're like, hey, that would be really great there. Of course, we want to scale appropriately. We want to be prepared for that, so that we don't run into the same issues of like, we can't get those areas.
So Sean's going to give you a piece of his advice that he gave me. If you want to grow what?
I don't even remember what advice
you're going to get to the point now, and I think that you guys are still like in the startup days, right? You've acquired these. You're still doing everything yourself.
You've been hustling door to door.
Right.
You are either
since
going
2018.
to you're going to go in 2 directions from here. Okay, it's either going to go to burnout, right? Mm-hmm. Or it's going to go to, you guys have to find someone to help. And I did this for a very long time. 100%. I did what you guys are doing for about 8 to 9 years.
Yeah.
And at the 10th year, I just could not do it for one more second anymore. But someone came to me on Instagram. And now that I look back, I cannot believe that I ever said yes to this, because I used to get tons of Facebook and Instagram weirdos, as I called them, and I would just ignore them all. But this one said, I will work for you for free. Let me be your consultant. I work for another company. Wow. I want to start a consulting company. I need to learn from somebody. I will work for you for free. I will help you get your cost of goods. I will help you do this and this and this. And these are things that everything was all in my head, like it is with you guys.
Right.
I didn't. You don't have time for tons of spreadsheets or whatever. You know what your profit is. But you get to the point where if you want to acquire number 5, 6, 7, and 8 and double what you guys are making, you're going to have someone help you on that 100%. Side. And I know it's hard.
I think we're there.
And I know it's hard finding people, and that's kind of what I ran into. And what Sean said to me first was, "You will never fire anyone too soon." There were people on my team that just weren't cutting it. They worked for me when I was small, but they didn't have the mindset to scale and go bigger.
Yeah. Right.
And I had to let a couple of people go that just weren't a good fit for my company, and then hire people that had more experience. Brought on the girl working. She worked for a whole year for free. I saw what she brought to the table, and she's now my COO of my company.
Wow.
But she's helped me get organized to help me scale, or otherwise I would have been stuck where I was at when I met her at the $2 million mark.
Yeah,
you're going to have to figure out how to clone yourself.
Right.
So
you have to kiss a lot of toads,
is what
I'm saying.
You have to spend all your time training this person, and you're going to feel like, well, I should be working on more sales. But the faster you train them and the faster you get them there, then you can start buying other territories, and you can focus on training 2 salespeople. And so that's going to be y'all's next
move.
And
also just working on like side streams of revenue, like in terms of like right now you kind of have a little side project that you're doing.
Well, almost in that regard, I trained somebody to settle my appointments for me the way I was doing it. And then that created an opportunity, and that like there were other people like me, franchise owners across the nation at Stroll were like, wait, you did what? Does she have more hours? And I'm like, she could. So that's kind of almost turned into a thing. And I think the same speaks true to a salesperson. And I know there's, right time, right place. Like we probably need to start looking for that more actively, but right people in the right walk of life opportunity would probably gravitate towards that. And that's when you start to get into scalability.
What drives ad revenue? So is it the amount of publications that are out there, or what drives like the sales price of the ads?
Basically, it's the distribution itself of the neighborhood. Market value plays a factor, but we've never been an organization that decides we want to charge, 4 times the marked up price of what it costs us to distribute it. So we like to scale those appropriate to the distribution. Now, most of the ones around Houston are around the same, let's call it like 1,500, 1,800 homes. So that's going to drive that price. Fortunately, prices across most areas are somewhat constant.
And do you control those prices? Are you flexible with that too? Or
we're able
NO2
to,
or whatever it's called. Is it NO2?
Into company, yes. They do. I mean, there's market rates and there's recommendations on a national level, as to what we should be charging and what the market would sustain. And then there's, flexibility on the franchise owner to meet with a business, and let's say they're in their first year and they love River Oaks.
First month free or whatever.
Yeah, because we're working with a lot of businesses. We're not working like everyone's not like the Porsche dealer or the jeweler. I mean, it's like a lot of these people, they may be like the plumber, and it's like they're trying to reach this neighborhood. So it's like, everyone doesn't have this massive marketing budget. And so I think that's also why we offer different ad sizes, and you really
so many customizations within the packages too, to where it's we don't ever want to make this cookie cutter to where, I get this all the time, and I have to just politely navigate around it, where a company will say, hey, we like this, send us your media kit. And I'm like, there needs to be a conversation. Like we need to have a conversation. Number one, our prices won't scare people off, but it's on philosophy of what are they looking to do? What kind of branding? Are they wanting branding, or do they want direct response? And then if that fits, we really like to customize a package for them that's fair to market price, but also allows small businesses to partner, because we really were, this company was made for small businesses.
Small businesses, yeah.
Like we weren't ever after those mega accounts that you see advertising all over the city. Now we have those, and that's great. And I think Stroll's helped that just on the upper tier branding that we've created as a company. But our bread and butter type of client is your small, medium-sized trade service business that's in the neighborhood 5 days a week, servicing homes and doing work on the property. That's really who we were designed for. Yeah. So to your point, you have to remain flexible for those type of companies that want to participate and they'd be good lifelong clients, but they can't pay the same bill that these mega corporations can.
So since you took over, let's say the River Oaks area as an example, because it was already there, what % have you been able to grow that business since taking over, and what % of growth since rebranding? Have you seen a difference since the rebrand on?
I think so.
I absolutely have seen, and I think what we've been able to do is somewhat consolidate to where we might have had, let's say if we had the same top line revenue before the rebrand, we had a lot of different small ads going out there for a lot of different companies. we've passed that in top line revenue, what we used to be, but now we're doing it with even fewer clients. I think we're getting bigger spots in there. We are reaching, an upper tier type of client too, mixed in with those small clients. So we're, I guess what I'm saying is we're doing a little bit less with more. Yeah. Or more with less, I should say.
Which is good too, because kind of to your point, some of the other publications that you get, they're just full of ads. And that is something like we really try to stick to a 50-50 content to ad ratio. We do stick to that. So
that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I don't want you to open it up and it's like every single page. You're like, okay, well, I just got through like 10 pages of ads and then there's like one little story. Right. So
a much healthier mix now of like full pages and half pages and quarter pages.
But I think the Stroll rebrand has really, really helped that. I mean, I feel like even just in a confidence level, like when we're going to people and we're like, hey, we're Stroll River Oaks. They're like, oh, yeah. Like, I know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Instead of, hey, we're River Oaks Life. It's different than this, but I know you get this. And
there was always,
I mean, just awkward. So
it requires less explaining as to what we are. And we just always say, if they haven't heard of us, we're the neighborhood newsletter for River Oaks proper. And it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. So
now that you have rebranded, the resistance that you did have in the beginning when everybody was kind of forced to move over to the name, are they eating their words now?
I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people have openly, and you'll always have
like, you're
folks
right,
that,
you're right.
Hey, like we resisted, but this was good for the brand. Really anyone who's been around for a long enough period of time has seen the positive impact, not just
a business mindset. It's like, you have to be able to see that like a larger rebrand is only going to be good for your business. It's
anytime you try to rebrand or anytime you try to make any change in a company, I mean, you're always going to push back.
Panic.
All your employees are like, this is how we've been doing it forever.
Oh yeah.
And so you'll have that problem in any business. And so I don't think it was out of the ordinary for people to respond like that.
No, I mean, some people definitely freaked out.
But I think for the most part, they have gone back and said, okay, the company was right. Like, this was a good move nationwide, and it absolutely has been.
But we love West U. That would be an area we would love.
I thought maybe
that would be a really good one.
So does anyone have West U right now?
No.
So now that we said that on here, we have to do it.
Maybe.
And
we're gonna make y'all do it. I think that's a good one, because that's a very.
What we would look at though, possibly doing in West U, one of the other product lines is called Greet. And that's for a larger mailing.
Greet is basically Stroll for a little bit of a larger area, like a West U or what we now have in Memorial.
What about the Heights? My corporate office is there. My business partner.
There was one in the Heights, and the owner was just not able to do it herself at a certain point and gave that franchise up. It could absolutely come back. And I think if you found the person that was in the walk of life,
his office is there is just such a strong community that I think it would be.
It is.
It's very, very
my business partners lived there for 30 plus years and developed.
And it was there for years. And I think, again, we run into this sometimes of you've got a great established platform and an awesome neighborhood, and the person who's run it for a long time needs to step out for various reasons. And when that happens, the neighborhood doesn't go away. I mean, I think now, would we take that one over while we're trying to do this, and this? Maybe not.
And, it's like you do have to find the businesses that it's like they're willing to spend their marketing budget on that one community. It's like they have to see enough value in the community to be like, I'm going to spend this much money every single month. I'm going to spend $500. I'm going to spend $1,000.
You can find that.
Every single month.
Yeah, Heights will do it. So if I was, I'm going to push y'all to do this. So the Heights, the Heights in West U.
Sean's going to come in and consult, do some free consulting.
Yeah.
No, Heights in West U, you won't make a mistake going to either
West
one of those places.
We would love West U.
You talked to me about that a year ago. You would ask me, and I was like, I could probably help you.
It keeps on coming up too.
I would.
People keep on saying, do West U. And we've had clients that have said, if you do a West U like tomorrow, I'll sign up. Like, put me on the waiting list for West U.
At the little event we had on Sunday for the kids social, we had one of our current sponsors who also lives in the neighborhood, and he's like, when's West U coming? Because like I'll be in it tomorrow. We're working on it. So
that's hard to ignore.
Like local businesses over there.
Nice.
We would love. I mean, it's like, and then even like Tangle was another colleague of ours that we work really close with, and we've talked about possibly even
just working together with Tanglewood, Stroll.
Because Tanglewood and River Oaks just go so closely together. So a lot of the businesses that we work with are like, okay, if I'm going to be in River Oaks, I want to be in Tanglewood. So that's something else, like a little territory that we're looking at. And it is hard going back to kind of what we just talked about. It's like, it's just us.
So what would be ideal to allow for all this is that tap into, we know we won't clone ourselves, but to tap into a pool of, let's say, sales talent or people who are hungry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you used to work in a career search. What do you call those things?
Staffing.
Thank you. A staffing company. So you already know, you know, what steps you need to take. That's just, that's my advice. I mean, Sean's the business pro. He's good at scaling stuff quickly. But I think step one for you guys, I mean, if that's the direction you want to go in, sometimes you never know where this could take you. Just like you said, what if you end up with a scheduling software, right? Just like Sean is, you know, went into oil and gas and then started creating software in regards to that. You never know when you get your foot into something, which direction it'll take you. So if that's the direction you taking you and not opening more locations, but I definitely, or different zip codes, I think you guys, you know, find somebody, start training them now and say, hey, in 3 months, we're going to buy these next 2 and we're going to, you know, expand, and you'll be ahead of that, kind of learning from where you're at now.
Yeah, because our goal isn't necessarily to have, you know, we don't want to have, we have 9 publications. It's like we want to have the right publications. We want to have the right
have quality
areas.
and not spread yourself too thin.
Or at least not without the structure to back it to where if it becomes 9 times the work that one is, that's so burnout, like you said.
Total burnout. And so we've
had
a lot of conversations about that lately, even just kind of like, hey, you know, we've got these 4 right now. You know, what does this look like in 5 years? Like maybe we don't have these 4, maybe we have these 2. And so that's kind of, you know, we're trying to do a lot of
soul searching
right now. Once we get some sleep after, you know, we don't stop having babies.
That's never going to happen. You get less sleep. Yeah.
No.
Y'all are to the point now where you can go and try to scale it though. So
for sure.
You've done the hustle work from day one.
Yeah.
I mean, you started knocking on doors and there's no publication. And then all of a sudden you grind for all these years. And now you're to the point where it's like on the brink of a real business, a real concept.
Yes.
And now is when you can go hire some real people and like good talent and then help yourself scale where you can not go crazy trying to do every
not to be me chasing 9 times the accounts,
so
or you collecting 9 times the content. Exactly.
I mean, I do. I mean, the amount of articles I have to get on a monthly basis, you know, is around like 65 articles total. I mean, an article is that this is a relative term to
constantly chasing people around like me. Where you at? But
it is. I
mean,
you
it's
editing
and everything?
Yeah, I like nag people to death sometimes. But it's like people are like, I'm so busy. But everyone at the end of the day is always so excited to see their article. They're so excited whenever it comes out. But it's a lot of work. I mean, and I don't necessarily write. We've gone to a Q&A format, which I think most people prefer.
More approachable from a readership standpoint as well.
I think so.
People don't want to sit there and read these like lengthy articles.
I get it. I think it's great.
But it's a lot of work, and I don't know. I mean, I would really like to do West U. I keep pushing Stephen to do West U.
I think you should. I think you should.
Yeah. That's a goal of ours.
Sometimes there's that writing on the wall that it's just like hard to ignore. So
I think both those locations would work out. I don't think you're gonna have a problem.
Well, I feel like now that we've talked about it on this, by the time it airs, like if we don't have it going, someone else is gonna snatch it.
Maybe in August we'll be like
now what we've done is
you guys are gonna inspire some people to look into this. I'm sure.
No, for sure. We joke about that. We're like, man, if West U, like if
like it's something to where if an opportunity was taken away from you and you'd really lament and regret that, then maybe that makes you reconsider. Like, do you want it or not?
Sure.
Just do the math, and then whatever your expected revenue is, just you're going to make a little bit less profit, but you'll have the help to actually go and scale it. And you're not going to go crazy. You trying to do all the editing and you knocking on doors and
Well, I certainly don't think that content would be an issue in West U. I mean, I think that there's
not at all.
Like I mean, I just
medical center and everything.
I don't think there would be any in terms of like just
so family driven.
All the moms
involved.
Groups and
sports.
Schools. I don't see
very involved.
It's just a matter of us, I think, shifting around. So if I had to predict, I always love predictions, but I'm like, I don't think that we would have the current 4 publications that we have in 5 years. I think it will look a little bit differently. That would be my prediction.
Or getting stuff closer together.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that makes sense because you can't spread yourself. And
it's hard to give yourself fully. Like when you're in Houston and Fulshire and Katy and all these, it's hard to give yourself, even in terms of like the events that we do or like happy hours, things that we try to do, networking things with our clients. Again, going back to I don't have a nanny, we have 3 kids, and it's just important for us to be like at home with our kids, and we can't be at everything all the time. Right. So having things just more condensed.
And again, we didn't come to this to be at all those things every night and every day, because again, why did we come here? Quality of life.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it's been such an inspiring story. I think people have to hear that if they're stuck in their 9 to 5 and they are unhappy, it's like sometimes this opportunity you have to go and knock on doors and like
it's
really
scary.
hustle.
Yeah, it's a leap of faith.
You can't just think that you're gonna have all this spare time and start a new career or start a new business and it's going to take off and you're going to make all this money.
Work your ass off. I mean, I feel like I always think about you because I'm like, gosh, she works her ass off. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, you have to do that. And I think a lot of people do see social media and all these things these days where it just looks like, oh, I should be able to wake up and be successful. And it doesn't work like that. I mean, you have to be willing.
Money for a long
2 million passive income.
Well, they also don't see the first 10 years of it, right? They didn't see the beginning of it.
It's not cute and it's not pretty. And so you just have to work really, really hard.
And it usually, for an entrepreneur, involves a really scary, leap of faith has become that cliche, but
but aren't you glad you did it now that you look back? I mean, could you imagine yourself spinning
enough
in circles?
to where we did it once and we were like, let's do it again.
And
let's
even
do
when
it
we have
again.
hard days right now where we're like, God, like this is just tiring, or like maybe it's a hard month, or maybe it's a slow month, or the economy, or you're getting all these excuses, and you kind of start getting all that doubt in your head of like, are we doing the right thing? Like, is this working? But we know deep down that we're like, it is working. We know that these people are reading these magazines, and we know it means a lot to them. I just think it goes back to like, you have to take a leap of faith and be willing to do something different. And that is what our constant reminder is. And even on hard days, like we do not want to go back to a 9-to-5 office job. Like that is something that is so important to us. We cannot, like I think about
we've
how
spoiled
we
that for ourselves
for
in the right way, in a good way.
Well, you're not alone. It happens 2 to 3 times a month for everyone.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
I'll have a meltdown.
Maybe she's 2 to 3 times a month.
Last week I was on, remember my toe rotted off, I don't know if you saw
I'm
that,
selling everything.
I went to have my toes worked on before going out of town, and they cut my toe, and then if I got airport juice in it or whatever, I got staph in my toe.
Oh my
and it was
gosh.
all swollen and pussing. And I don't know what the heck was, but
don't travel in sandals.
Well, that's exactly what I did. And I think I got some juice in there. I could feel myself walking on the floor with no socks on at airport security.
My God.
And then anyway, my toe was like throbbing in 2 days. But anywho, I was going somewhere with that story. Oh, so I got a tetanus shot, and I was taking Bactrim, which is a strong antibiotic, and it just mentally something happened. But I mean, this just
I'm not in a good place.
Yes, and I'm like, I'm gonna sell it. So called me, I was like, start looking for a private investment company that will want to buy us.
I'm glad to know that I'm not the only
one. I was gonna say, I feel like
mental,
literally
sell
in
it
the past
all.
couple weeks, I'm just like, what are we doing?
Well, I used to be so much more open about all of this stuff on social media, but I try not to be as negative. People did appreciate that about me. Again, I don't do it as much anymore, but I mean, we all have that. I mean, it's every other week. Sean, not as much as everybody else. He has so little emotion in business, which is great.
I think it's because everything in the world that's possible has happened to
whenever
me.
I say
and
something,
so I'm like,
you learn, you
not a real
like,
problem.
It's like, okay, that's not a big problem. That I can actually fix it.
He always goes,
well,
is it
fixable? Like there's a lot of problems that are unfixable.
Right.
But one of the things I took, I've learned so much from him. He's always been like 5 years ahead of me on business. Been doing it 5 years longer than me on everything that he's done. And hiring good people when I thought no one is going to, you said these things. You said the things that I was saying at, the 9-year mark. No one is going to do it as good as me, which is true. But you have to be able to scale, or like I said, you're going to burn out. And I started hiring more people, more than I probably could afford at that time. Yeah. But once I had 4 layers of management, nobody comes to me about the little things anymore. Right. Just like for you, the little things is checking on people every single day. Yeah. You can have, that's an easy plug and play for somebody else to do. And that has taken so much pressure off of me. And now I feel like I have a real life. Yeah. I'm not working every night. Yeah. Sean and I get off work I'm not here till 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night. And then I go home and get my computer and work more. Sean and I have good quality time together.
But
it takes 10 years to get there. Yeah. So somebody that's hearing this is like, but y'all put in the work.
We're
it's
about
actually,
5.
And we're still, hey, we're
you're still in the grind.
There.
You're still in the grind.
But
you are to the point now, I think, where y'all should have somebody that can do the plug and play easy things, sending out emails, access to your calendar. I'm sure you have some sort of alert system that says, this day, contact all of these people, and start there. Maybe have some college kid, someone who's new out of school.
Also, don't be frustrated if the first person sucks and you have to get rid
fire
of them.
Real quick.
It just is what it is, and you have to. You're going to have to go through a couple people to find the right person.
No, for sure. I think a lot of it's letting go of control too, and just knowing that just because someone doesn't do something exactly the way you do it. Or
I'm the biggest micromanager on the planet.
I'm really bad about it.
But I think it's so helpful to hear the perspective of other business owners. It's like, Gentry, we hear that from you, and it's like, the meltdown a week ago. And
I still have meltdowns. Everyone thinks I feel so.
And then
2 to 3 a month. No, probably 2 a month.
2 a month. Sean, I mean, yours, your level-headedness comes only from experience of you've seen this before.
It's only from 100 things going wrong, and I'm like,
there's awesome perspective in that, because it's like you've seen this before, and you're like, okay, we've done this, and this was fixable in the past. And how do we handle this? And you're like, hey, I have those breaking points too. And I think that's what other entrepreneurs need to hear, is that you're not on this island alone freaking out.
Yeah. Just nobody talks about it out loud, because it makes you look like you're not successful.
You think you look weak, and you're like, no, I'm actually just being real, and this is real business, and this is,
I would so much rather be real, because I feel like there's, I'm real with Sean of course, about everything. And then he always goes back to what's fixable and what's not fixable.
Yeah.
And what makes you successful is you find a way around the roadblocks and everybody else gives up.
Right.
If you're willing to push hard and figure shit out on your own, you are going to be successful. So don't let the little things, put on your blinders. Don't look at what your ex-employees are doing when they're trying to start their own makeup line. They're never going to work as hard as you. They're never going to be as focused as you. Ignore the noise and stay focused.
It's all execution. It really is in business. It's all execution. If y'all continue to do that, you'll push past any competitor.
Well, we are very hard workers. So I'm always like, I never like have any doubt in us.
Well, what is our number one team core value? What does it say?
You're not allowed to say the word, unfortunately.
Oh, I hate that one. No, that's another one. Don't get me on that tirade. I will.
we do not allow
literally.
The word unfortunately is not allowed in our like customer service.
Anyone who goes on our team, we're like, you are literally not allowed to say
it's don't accept limitations.
Don't accept limitations.
Basically what you said of if there is a roadblock, when everyone else gives up, find a way around it.
And having a good support system at home. You guys are doing this together too.
Yeah.
Just like him and I are doing this together. When I say we're doing the podcast together. But everything else business wise, we're separate, but we can still come on common ground. And when I'm being crazy or I'm feeling like, stressed, I can come to him and he always is so positive about everything. And that's how it seems you guys are as well. And saying, listen, I know you're frustrated with all of these writers that are not showing you your shit.
Yeah.
Let's find a new way to do this to get this done find new people. And then you guys can communicate that and work things out and realize this is not the end of the world. It's okay. You're just having a bad week or you're having your period.
Or whatever. No, I mean, it's grown our relationship a lot. And like our HR department, we joke is, seen some really bad times. It's been fun. I mean, we've come a long way. I feel like working together. Like it was a lot of arguing in the beginning, and
she almost quit on me like 8 times.
I almost quit on Sean 5 times in the last 5 days.
And that's also normal. It's okay to know that's normal.
It's what makes y'all's marriage probably work as well. It's like your brains work differently, but you need that combination, and it like makes you powerful when you're together. But you're different. You're so different, and you need those qualities.
Well, he also said to me a long time ago, so we will never work together. Just know that, and then here we are. But I'm just working with him on communication because I am so big on communication, and I like to say the same thing 10 times. And I tell people when they first start with me, don't take this offensively. Number one, I have dementia and I forget what I say. So I'd rather just say it 10 more times just because sometimes I have memory lapse where I don't remember that I said it. And then Sean is the complete opposite way. And he's trying to learn to communicate. So anyways, just communicating with one another. We got along so good for like 16 years. I mean, maybe 2, I call them fights, but other people would just call it bickering. Over the past 16 years, the last couple of days, he like put his headphone on full blast. He's like, I don't want to talk about this right now. I'm like, who are you? And I'm like pestering him. I'm like poking at him. I'm like, communicate with me.
Like, I'm good. I just didn't feel it was just too much that day.
Yeah. Then the next morning he's like, what he's really good about too is apologizing. He always does it first, even if he's not wrong. He'll just say, I'm so sorry. I was just really cranky last night because of XYZ, but I'm better now. I'm so sorry.
It's like you
shut you down.
You have to realize that each other, you're still human beings, and we're all, we're dealing with all of the things, parenting. I mean, you guys have a lot going on, and with 3 babies, like it's a lot of moving pieces. So it takes a lot of communication, to your point.
Well, you guys are doing it well. You guys have a great product out there. I think you guys have done an amazing job.
I do too. I push people too much, but I'd like, we need to grow bigger. We need to do this. Y'all need to go here. You need to go here.
Sean will be checking on you guys.
Yeah, I'm going to be texting you in like 2 weeks.
We wouldn't have talked about it, and we wouldn't have opened up about that part of it. It hadn't been on like our, eyes in our hearts.
Yeah, are you gonna like nudge me in the car like you shouldn't have mentioned the West U?
No, because I kind of figured it might come up.
I really think
the reason I didn't say
I said it lately though. I've been like,
the reason I didn't say don't talk about it because now it does put a little bit of onus on it. Like,
you want what you can't have. So as soon as somebody takes it, you're gonna be like, no. So you have until August when this comes out.
Yeah. I sold a great realtor an ad one time because I was offering it to them and I had to think about it a little bit, and I came back and I said, I do have somebody else. It wasn't a sales tactic. I said, I have somebody else that wants it. I said, but I offered it to you first. She goes, well, I don't want that person to have it, so I guess that means I want it.
I've done that. I've done that in business
3 years later, she's here. I mean, so it was one of those things.
And we do try to like cap with advertisers. Like we do try to cap. Like we don't like to have too many in one industry, but tactics like that do work.
Well, that was a specific page too. Yeah, but like to the point of when you want something that you can't have, or that you have something in front of you that somebody else can have, and you have to decide whether or not you want it instead of that person. Sometimes that tells you if you want it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
If it was me, I'd just run the numbers and then do your math based on like one salesperson and one maybe part-time editor or whatever you think you'll need to scrape
and
by.
have it be like a package deal. Like
when
you're
and
hiring
say,
this person because you're taking this.
We know that it might take us a couple months to get there, and we'll spend the money to hire this person, but then y'all aren't going crazy, and you can actually start to scale and not.
And you've built your network now, so where you're not going to have to knock on doors as much. It's just more phone calls now.
Yes, 100%. I mean, I feel like we've met with enough businesses. Actually, I always like
we.
Where are we?
I don't do anything.
Where are we?
No, but that's actually one of the fun things about my part is like I'm always meeting with people who run businesses too. I mean, there's so many business owners in River Oaks and any of our communities, but you've met with so many people who, again, are like, hey, if you guys started a West U, like, we'd be in there tomorrow. So it's been a large topic of conversation. We've talked about it enough. We're doing this.
We're really excited about our issue. So I want to say this before we leave today. We have an issue coming out. What month is it in?
We're going to do you guys in December.
Okay, in December. So I think you're going to have our realtor that Sean met through me on the cover that month, him and his family. I did, what was it called? Leukemia, lymphoma fundraising stuff, and I met him for Man and Woman of the Year a long time ago. He sold us our Lock Lane house. Now Sean's bought and sold, more than 10, maybe even 15 houses with him at this point. So we have a great relationship with him, and one of the houses that we purchased from him is the one we're living in now. So we were kind of blogging through this whole project of Sean buying the biggest piece of shit in River Oaks. It was a vacant home for 5 years. It still smells like a vacant home.
It's an amazing history though, right?
But it's got
most people probably would have tore it down,
And I think it's going to be a really good story of, who owned the house before us, its story, some old photos of the house. We've gotten with the family. We're going to get some really old photos and get permission to post.
The granddaughter actually saw us outside and stopped by and said, hey, can I see the inside?
She's like, this is my granddaddy's house.
And she goes, I used to stay back here in this apartment. And then she started sending us pictures and we're like, these are so cool.
So we're going to have really cool photos.
Tear it down.
Oh, she was super excited. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
So the house is almost 100 years old. I think it was
pretty much 29.
Wow.
So anyways, it's going to be a great story, and we're going to have tons of images and, why Sean bought it and, how much value he's brought to it, 2 or 3 times the value of what he paid for it. Probably we were able to build into the house and not tear down and build something that's not, the whole vibe check of the neighborhood, which they're trying to keep.
Hot topic.
Yes.
They're actually changing some of the
we were talking
HOA
about that on Sunday.
To try to keep it a little bit more like classic.
Getting a little,
I mean, it is such an intimate, like amazing style architecturally of the neighborhood that you just love that. And I love the fact that y'all did that because it's going to preserve that.
It's actually why we bought it. It was just like, we would have never designed it that way, but everything's perfect about it. It
was what I thought was going to be your biggest mistake.
Yeah.
Did you have a plan for it though? When you are like, were there other homes you were looking at?
No,
you wanted that one.
Sean, okay, so Sean always lives on the shitter. He poops like 15 times a day, and during his pooping time, he's on HAR.
We call that tinkering time.
Tinkering.
Quit tinkering and let's get the show on the road.
No, he's on HAR.
Does Auburn Rivals.
And HAR and other things.
We lived in the neighborhood already, and so I would pass it on every day on the way to work. And so when it came up,
was it just listed? It was completely just sitting there.
No, it wasn't listed at first.
It wasn't listed at first, but then when it did come up, I text Mike and I'm like, hey, this would be a really cool house to remodel.
Yeah.
Maybe just for investment.
And he had the listing.
He didn't at the time, but he knew the listing agent. And so I actually texted her. I was, hey, would you live here this lot?
Oh my God, no.
So we had the house next door to us under contract at the time this came up.
Oh, did you really?
Yes. So we were going to make that a bigger yard, and that's why we bought it. And
Sean just paid for all these plans to have this little extra.
I already had all the plans done in the back, and like we were going to tear down the house.
Oh my gosh!
But then this came up, and I'm like, hey, this is way bigger lot.
Well, the house had already come up before, but it had changed hands so many times, and people got all the way to closing and then backed out because there was a drain line down the middle of it, and you couldn't tear the house down, you couldn't build a pool, all of these like obstacles, and it kept coming back on the market. And so it had come back on the market because we didn't think we were going to get it, and that's when you just.
I bid on it one time, didn't get it. 6 months later,
Sean's over here at the lowest bid, like $1 million below everybody else. He's like, hi, I want this house. They were like, fuck off, guy.
It wasn't that bad.
But yes,
so we end up, the house next door to us, we end up just so since I got that under contract, we just remodeled the house next to us and sold it.
Instead of tearing it down.
And so, which we had great neighbors after that. He ends up playing Liam's running in his house every day. So it ended up working out really well. And then we're able to renovate this house, since it was in our neighborhood and I pass it every day.
So I was like, I can have this thing done in 6 months. Remember that?
I remember because we talked about it and I was like, hey, we want to do the historic story. And you're like, yeah, 6 months. And I was just like,
6 months from construction time. And then it definitely turned into a way bigger, way more custom project.
Blame it on me.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Hey, if you're going to do something,
Sean keeps thinking of all the custom things you picked out.
If you're going to do something, do it right. That's right.
I'm doing another house in the neighborhood right now, and nobody's involved, and it'll be done in 6 months. It'll be done this month. And I started in January. I started in January. So it's like, it can be done.
Is this your lifelong house? Like, are you going to stay here?
Nah, everything's always an investment.
Okay.
anytime.
We will for a
We're
long
kind of
time.
waiting for there's to be some sort of dip because what we thought was going to be the big dip of COVID didn't happen. Everything like doubled,
or tripled. It's been
so we're waiting for the next dip, and then we'll probably buy like our forever home.
Okay.
And then sell this one.
Okay.
We'll see.
The only thing we would do is a bigger lot. That's it. Other than that, we love our house. Like you can't really rebuy what we've done. And so
we drive around on Sundays. Sometimes after dinner, like last night, we just drive around the neighborhood and we look at every single house. There's nothing really that I love more than our house now because we made it exactly what we wanted it. There's nothing else that I see that's even bigger that I'm like, oh, I would love to have that. I just think ours is just so unique and so different and exactly what I wanted it to be on the inside, a mix of the modern mixed with the old.
Right.
I like the quirky, weird things, the weird openings, the smaller staircase. It has a basement.
I was going to say, I remember you saying there was a basement. Did you find like some papers in the wall or something?
Well, we found a safe.
Or like a lawyer, someone.
It was a lawyer. It was a lawyer's house. We held a safe, and he was very like flamboyant and like over the top and just really showy. And I was like, oh my God, there's gonna be something good in there. So Sean called the locksmith, and by the time the locksmith got there, he got the safe open. He's like, well, somebody's already been here. There's no shit in here. I'm like, damn it! There's gonna be something good in there.
That's what I love about all the River Oaks homes. Though, I will say that's the one topic. Like I get a lot of pushback on the articles for the homes. Which is very interesting to me.
Oh, like sharing
homes.
Yeah.
Oh, like sharing the inside.
It's like people will give me their
if it's
kids.
like a home of the month or something like that, which we don't do every month. But if we get one, it's
so. I've
what do you mean? They're like, I don't want you to photograph my home.
I don't want my home shown, and a lot of it comes down to like privacy reasons, which I totally get that. But what I hear a lot is like, well, my house isn't ready.
Oh well, my house literally isn't ready. I don't have carpet or.
But it's funny to look at from an outside perspective because again, we live in Katy. And no, the River Oaks homes are just so beautiful, and so you're like, oh my gosh. And so I've tinkered with the idea of like almost doing more of like a favorite space. Like, hey, what's your favorite space in your
just
house?
One room,
or just like one
or
room,
outdoor area.
Outdoor area.
That would be a pretty cool one.
Like a unique space. Because then you could get ideas from that too.
I mean, it's just
the outdoor area people would love to read. Like I would look through it and read it because everyone has like their own way that they kind of lay out their kitchen.
We kind of did that in Katy. We did the outdoor oasis. Yeah. And I do think it gives people ideas. I think
you just feature several houses.
For those of us that spend time on HAR like hours upon a day, like we like that type of.
Also, if you did the outdoor area or some space in their house, you wouldn't have to put the address, and you just say.
That is the one thing I always tell them. I'm like, I never have to put your address.
Definitely
so they can you can showcase it and no one's going to know it's their backyard.
Yeah, right. That's the one article that's given me the most trouble.
I get it though.
A little bit. I do too.
I've tinkered with that idea, but I like the outdoor space idea.
That's a great.
I was like that when she first got on social media. I was like, don't post anything about our house. Don't post this.
Now he's the one filming.
I don't care. I got to the point where I'm like, it's like I don't care.
So do a feature like a month or one with only kitchens, one or only
bathroom. I like that because
rooms.
everyone is probably thinking about remodeling their house because they're all older houses.
Mm-hmm.
So
it'd be good to launch that in the
you got like 70% of people. They're like, well, I really want to do my kitchen, but I think it would be inspiring if they see other people in the neighborhood
and the plans of how little space it really takes to do it.
Yeah, we've done. Maybe we could do the new one that we're. You can use my one
for the other house.
Mm-hmm, the one that we're currently about to finish in May.
Yeah, and that's what it takes.
So cool. It takes
someone being like, "Hey, like I'll share this with you," and then people can kind of see the example of it.
And then we're on this. Like, oh, that's not bad.
We're on the street with the smallest lots, and
like
so
10,
it would be a good. It would be.
lots.
I did a really cool outdoor space there, and so that would be a good one to where you could say, "Hey." Even on the smallest lot in the neighborhood, this is what you were able to create.
You can do with this space.
Yeah.
So you're more than welcome.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome because that's really an article. I feel like we've done really well with the kids and the pets and the families and the making a difference articles and the charities. But like I really want to tap into more of just because the neighborhood is so historic and those homes are amazing and they're every house is unique.
And we know everybody on the street, so I'm trying to do a really good job too. And so I want somebody to have a good house, and so. The outdoor kitchen for somebody to go remodel a house and sell it, it's beyond like what anybody would probably do. We have like high-end grill, pizza oven, ceramic cookers, and it's really cool.
And how many square feet is the lot?
The lot's only 7,700 square feet.
Wow.
I thought it was at least 10,000.
No, our old lot was everything on that street is about like 75 to 8,000.
Yeah, and our old house was a really.
And so we're doing we have
a very good use of space. There was no grass in the backyard, which is great, less maintenance. But everything was accounted for, and there was so many like livable areas.
This one's cool. It's really cool, and so y'all have to do a deal. I think it would inspire some people on a smaller backyard. How much you can put back there.
I always tell people that I'm like this. We do have a kind of our core articles is what I call it. But I'm always open to ideas or like if there's something neat going on in the neighborhood or something unique, like I'm pretty flexible when it comes to content as long as it stays within, it has to be related back to residents or something going on in the community. But I love new ideas. So I'm always looking for different article topics.
I think homeowners would appreciate it. I mean, anybody you talk to in the neighborhood, oh yeah, we want to do our kitchen, but I don't really, and they don't really know where to start. But if they'll give them good ideas,
you can get a budget too of what you had to spend.
Yeah, I'm good. I'll give you all the numbers and everything.
Yeah, so. That'd be awesome.
How much space you had and what it looked like before. He's got a ton of before and after pictures.
Oh yeah, we have before and afters and everything too. So
I can't wait to see our own article come out.
And
I can't wait to see when this comes out, August-ish, plus or minus a few weeks. What you guys decided. Mine too. Mine too. What's your birthday?
16th.
Mine's the 27th, so you're almost a Virgo.
Are you a Leo?
No, I'm Virgo.
Oh,
I'm Virgo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just missed the cutoff.
I can't wait to see what you guys come up with and where you go with your potential maybe software idea or something, scheduling system person.
Just scheduling for now. Now, if I find someone much smarter than myself to develop the software around it, now we're really in business. But there you go. Yeah.
But thank you guys for taking time out of your busy day with your 19 children and
and all
of your ideas to do this. So
no, thank you guys.
Thank y'all so much for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah.